Hello,
Hi,
Peter.
Enrique.
Good morning.
Good
Welcome
morning.
back
How are you
again.
doing?
Welcome back again for a
Welcome.
new interview. Everything is all right. we keep increasing the list of guests and the quality of them. So very happy for that.
Thank you very much for all of our audience. Thanks, guys, for just supporting us. It's great to see the increased number of people on LinkedIn. We're still working on the YouTube, so this is the new season. We're just putting the videos also on the YouTube, guys. So just come and join us when you just need to review the video and in the. Oh yes, we have this new feature.
The subscribe
This
button. We
is
have the subscribe button.
yeah. That's just click it, just scan it, and just you will be transferred to the YouTube part to subscribe. So anyway, thank you very much for giving us a chance this today as well. So thanks a lot.
Well, so let's welcome our guest. He's waiting on the waiting room. Let's not make him bored. So today we have a very important figure here in the area of the BIM and public administration. Let's welcome Jaan Saar to the BIM Cafe. Hello, Jaan. Welcome to the BIM Cafe.
Hi guys, hi Enrique, hi Peter.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's still snowy in Tallinn, Estonia, where I'm at. So could be more snow, but you know, with the global warming and the temperatures, we're lucky to get any snow at all.
I cannot complain about the snow. Just in Switzerland, it's pretty okay for when you want to go to skiing. You can go still, so it's very good to go there. Okay, it's okay. I think we're good for the people who are just before. That's okay.
Fantastic. Well, Jaan, welcome again to the BIM Cafe, and a pleasure to have you here on board. As I said, you hold a very important role on the public administrations and BIM digital transformation. So it's going to be a very good interview to keep going with getting closer BIM on the digital world. BIM, sorry, and the construction digital world. Let's introduce the presentation slide that we prepared as always. We will run through 3 main points after Jaan's presentation. This is going to talk, as I said, being in public administration, how to evaluate a digital solution, because Jaan has a good experience on that, and he can tell us how to make those assessments to see if the technical or technology can help in the sector of construction. And then also Jaan participated in several congress and steering committees. He can give us some insight about this big question, where in the industry going, right? So to put some light on that. No more overdue. Jaan, I give you the floor. You can introduce yourself. We're here a small summary taken from your LinkedIn profile, so nothing private. But if you want to add some words and introduce to our audience, it's your time.
Yeah, thank you, Enrique. So I'm very flattered by your introduction. You know, I don't consider myself a very important person in this sense. Just a guy who's gotten a bit involved in digital construction and maybe had the opportunity to be also part of several organizations dealing with this topic. But yeah, my day job is at the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications in Estonia, where I'm head of digital construction. So this is where I spend most of my time. But I'm also part of the EU BIM task group, and also involved with the Building Smart International as a board member of and one of their directors. So a lot of stuff, and also there's another organization called CCI, Construction Classification International Collaboration, which is a classification system, a free to use collaboratively developed construction classification system. And yeah, that also takes up a little bit of my time, but and most of all, I'm still here in Estonia, developing the construction platform here and making sure we're on the cutting edge of digital technology when it comes to construction industry. Because Estonia is a very small country, and it's easy for us to maybe implement changes here that are much more difficult in countries that are bigger and have a lot more legacy than us.
More administration layers, and also the things to go up and down takes years to make it happen. No? And how long have you been doing this job on the government in Estonia?
At the ministry, I've been now for almost coming up on 5 years. But this is my first time in public office, so working for a public company in the public sector. So before that, I've been involved in construction software development. I was the head of process and IT also for a total property lifecycle group. a Swiss company based in Switzerland, operating here in Estonia as well. And but construction industry, I mean, most of my professional life, my dad owns a construction supervision company, construction engineering company, and that's where I kind of more or less first started out during summers and doing stuff and seeing hands down how pavement is put on the ground and how the gravel and everything is prepared. So mostly it's infrastructure related.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've been on sites and seen how actual construction is also going on, not only in digital form.
Yeah, it's important also to realize why and how, what changes do we need on this industry, right? We need to see how the sites work, to see, okay, we still doing the things this way, or how come the technology hasn't arrived here yet. So when you go to a site, you understand a lot of the things that we told here on this BIM Cafe and many other congresses about digitalization and so on, which is something really needed.
No, I think it's perfect, guys. I mean, just because I believe that you're just the new generation of the construction world in the space, really, because you understand the technology part, which you pretty well, but you also understand the part of the construction, which is also very important. In our journey with Enrique, we have the chance to meet the people who understand digital part of the business pretty well, and do not have any idea what the concrete is and how really just to put the proper construction part. And we have an opposite side. So we know that with the guys who were just the experts on the construction, but they really just didn't get it. Why we need something, in terms of digital twin and going through this. So I think that's great to have you today. I hope we will have just the great moments together.
Yeah, likewise. And my background is actually, I'm not an engineer or a construction guy. I'm also in a business and IT guy by background and by education. So, but I've been somehow pulled into this construction world for a very long time.
It's very important that because my background is engineering and people who are born in this field and we grow in this field, it's hard for us, like you see the things inside your house. No? So it's good that people coming from outside with different mindsets about IT, telecommunications, IT, or some business management to bring those ideas. Say, hey, actually, this work outside, so why don't you guys implement it? No? So it's important to have those profiles coming on. I like to highlight this sentence I put it here below: people, processes, and IT in the construction industry, because I think it's a very good definition of Jaan's profile and also philosophy going forward. Important to don't let people outside this track, because otherwise we're gonna make the implementation of the processes and the IT.
So you just guys, we were just spending our hours on the last season in 2022 trying to find the money, trying to find the purpose. Why the bloody hell we are not able to go faster with this digitization of the construction industry? What is blocking this? And with all respect to the smart building and all of the building smart and all of the organization, what is the problem that we cannot just still right now go on to first? I have just right now the big crane in front of me. I'm sure that they're not using BIM. I can just guarantee you that. Why?
Well, that's the million euro question, isn't it? Why we've been talking about digital transformation in construction for decades already, to be honest, and still it takes a while because but construction is one of the oldest industries out there. And if you think of it, a lot of comparisons are made. Let's talk electronics, supply chains, automotive industry, aerospace. Look how they've digitized, look how they've done things. Well, we didn't build cars 1,000 years ago. We didn't build planes 1,000 years ago, but we did build houses, and we've been building houses ever since we moved out of caves, right? So to some extent, this is an age-old industry, and it's something that is very close to humans. It employs a lot of people, and it is a very huge industry at the same time. And it's a very complex machine work. There's a lot of people involved, a lot of stakeholders. It's very fragmented, etc. And this is, in my experience, what I've seen working with startups, with technology startups, in IT also, and some guys from automotive industry who really trying to disrupt, construction. It's what we try to do with the Swiss company as well. But you soon realize, it's not really like the automotive industry, or it's not really like the IT industry. something's different. It's actually much more complex. And on the outside, it seems like, well, it's just cranes and some guys running around building a house or whatever. But in reality, if you start thinking about the materials, the vast amount of options you have to choose on how to build, what to build, from which materials, how to put them together, what technologies you use there, and there are so many people involved in the process, it becomes a very, very complex machine. And that is, I think, inherently why it's very difficult to transform the whole industry, and why it takes a lot of effort, and it needs to be also effort made by the public sector on the government level, because the industry itself is so fragmented, and it's very difficult for one group, any particular company, to bring about a very big change in the whole industry. But that's how I've kind of tried to figure it out in my brain, because that's exactly the question I've had for a long time, and I still have. And
I think I have it. I think I agree with the way how you present it. So I understood that this is the old industry. I got that one. That's what one of the things which is important. But it's also an industry who just survived the different changes and different evolutions, right? And just you look at the different architecture styles, the way how we talk about the caves, but how the roofs are constructed and the build, etc., etc. So you go through the evolution and the materials. So that's very good. The one things which I believe on my side, when I see it for the last year when we discussed with Enrique, is, as you mentioned, the industry is fragmented, but it looks that there are so many people in the whole process when you just try to build something, even the small house, that this is really so fragmented that everybody trying to spread the responsibility. And this is not me, this is the plumber. No, it's not me, this electrician. That's not me, this is the guy who just put whatever. And this is something which really just enable you to find one single point, one single person, which is supposed to be the guy who is leading the construction. And I'm not sure how you call them in English, right? I know French one, but so this is he's supposed to drive everything, and he's supposed to be the driver of saying, this is how you need to use it. But at the end, I don't think so it's happening right now like this. I don't know.
Well, as long as there's this one guy in charge who doesn't use technology, it's very difficult to get the latest update on the process of construction. And this is what happens every day, also in Estonia and every country, is that the site foreman is kind of the god on regarding the construction, because usually it's not that well documented, it's not that digital, and this is the guy who knows what's going on. And let's be honest, a lot of them enjoy the power they have, because it's always okay, I got to call this guy, see what's actually happening on site. But if we start to really digitize as many of the processes as possible, collect data, we get to see insight into the process that's actually going on, and we don't need to ask this one guy who's kind of keeping tabs on everything, and that's when we start to see things change. But this will take a long time to still change.
Okay. So that's really okay. So we haven't really moved forward. I think, Enrique, we cannot find this magical pill for everybody to move forward. That's looking for this for the Graal, I think, somewhere. But that's okay. We will get there. And when you look at your experience in Estonia, what was really because as we know that you guys pretty well digitized on the governmental level and on all of the paperwork, etc. So what was the key drivers there just to move it faster than anybody in Europe? What was the two things which really just make a difference?
Well, I think if you think about the whole Estonian e-government success story, because Estonia has been called the most advanced digital society in the world, and there's a few unique pillars that brought about this change and make a lot of this digitization possible. One of them is having a mandatory e-identity for every person in Estonia. So every citizen of Estonia, we made a key decision in, I think it was already back in the late 90s or early 2000s, that the parliament decided that we need to start building digital services. But to make all of this work, we need to ensure that everybody has a digital identity. And so it was tied together with the ID card that every person has, that you need to have. You can choose to have a passport or not, but you still need to have an identity card. And this identity card comes with an electronic key, which is actually your electronic identity. And this is why we could then develop all these services where you could log in with your electronic identity, because we made sure everybody has one. You have to have one. And this also enabled us to push for digital signatures already 15, 20 years ago. And at one point, government offices, all public institutions, it was mandatory for them to accept digital signatures as regular paper-based signatures, because they had no excuse to say no to that, because everybody had a digital identity, everybody could sign digitally, and there was no reason for any government official to say, well, I don't accept your digital signature. And that really drove a lot of change in the industry, and the entire private sector immediately also picked up on it and started using digital signatures. And it really, I think, gave a nice boost and a momentum to drive all of this change. And once you have solved the digital identity, you can sign off things digitally. This opens up a whole world of digital services. You can build upon that. And that's why in 2016 already we have a fully digital building permit service solution for the whole of Estonia. So we have a national system which is developed and managed by my ministry, but it is used by all municipalities. So the process itself, getting a building permit, you go to your local municipality, but you don't go to the office. You go online and you submit your application online to that local municipality, and they manage, all the approval. They send you back comments, but all of that is done through a central system. But building such a system without having the underlying architecture for digital identity, for digital signatures, and also data exchange for secure and reliable data exchange between government systems, which is called X-Road in Estonia. And we've also exported this technology to Finland and to some other countries as well. I think without those underlying technologies, it would have been much, much more difficult.
Okay. So I think so this is interesting, because one part of the BIM, what you're saying, is just the architecture is also very important. So it's kind of like interesting, because for the BIM, you need to have the right architecture in place to make it sure that all of the pillars, which are foundations, needs to be properly placed. And I think that's really it. That's and we're struggling when you look at the different countries, right? And we're looking at the different operations. You have the so France, Spain, Germany, Switzerland. We try just to push the different type of the processes also on the governmental level, but it really looks that it's more blocking part sometimes than enabling, right? And just we have the complaints of some of the guests before saying just, I understand that I need to submit this in the specific format, but this format is pretty unique only to this guys, and we cannot reuse it anywhere else. So it's just, I need to train the people, I need to get this, I need to get special application, which is also, a paid application, etc., etc. So it's really looking like it's harder for the guys in different European countries to do this, when you were just explaining this, how you did this, guys, in Estonia. So it's interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, when it comes to our industry, we really need to rely on open standards. And in Estonia's case, it's like it makes no sense for us to invent anything really new, because we are so small. And when it comes to construction industry, we don't have our own software developers who are world renowned on developing design software. So we really need to work with something that's already out there, that is open, and that is usable by as many as possible. And that's one of our goals at the ministry and at the government, is to support open formats, open BIM, as much as possible. So we're building all of our new solutions, the e-construction platform, the BIM-based building permits, all around these open formats.
Okay. So one of the key. Sorry, Enrique, you want to say something? Sorry.
It's fine. I keep my question after.
Oh, come on. No. You can go. I'm just because otherwise I'm very talkative anyway, as always. Go ahead.
I want to ask, yeah, because it's interesting for me, the fact that you said before, to establish the digital whole system in Estonia, you need to have a digital backbone, or whatever you call it, with these people ID electronically, right? And I'm trying to find how or what will be that in the construction world. The BIM objects of every material, having open wide platform. So it's a question, right? I don't know the answer. So, but do you think that we're missing this digital backbone in the construction world to make this flow smoothly, like it happens in Estonia?
I don't think we're missing such a digital backbone as such, because it's really too optimistic to expect that there's going to be this one thing to tie everything together. It's really about how we manage data and how we understand what is construction information. And all of it is actually just data. BIM is just a form of how we structure this data. And and again, I think if you would consider something as the glue, or something that would tie it together, I would still come back to the open formats, and make sure that we are, exchanging information data in as much as possible in a common format, or a common language, if you will, which will make it a lot easier for us to join different processes, manage the information model from one phase to another, from one life cycle step to another, and to keep adding to that information all the time without having to recreate stuff from scratch. So I would say it's relatively simple data management practices when it comes to IT, but in the construction industry, it's still it's not that well understood of a concept. That we're not talking, we need to stop talking project based. We need to start talking more product based, and really look at the how we manage data from a life cycle perspective.
I like it as well. I'm just the way how you describe it, because I think that's really where you can find a lot of savings in the whole industry. Because if you start talking about the products and the life cycle of it, you can really just streamline and you can optimize the cost of the reutilization and the usage and the design and everything, right? So, and again, I'm not saying that everybody needs to live in the same house. That's not really the point what I try to make, but it's really trying to do, if we will be able to make sure that we are getting the same standards in terms of the connectivity and the pipes and the water and the canalization and all of this part related to the basic infrastructure, I think it will be much easier for us really to go forward. Still, we can still have a couple of different type of doors. That's not a problem. But from the technical perspective, they will be just easy to find and easy to get it from the BIM object and be able to place it, design it, calculate it properly, the design of the building, execute it, and then decommission it when it's needed, right? So I think that's important. Wow. Sorry.
Also, the skill that we were discussing the other day with Sergio Muñoz, the president of Building Smart Spain, and he also shared with us a very interesting data saying that around 90% of the as-built data is not being reviewed, used, or checked, or update during the process. And this is what you're saying. So refreshing my question, I would say the backbone we're missing in construction can be this mindset about how to use the digital data. No? This is how that will be the main topic to move forward, and not only, okay, the project is done and I work in construction, and when you do the as-built, you are so burnt out that you want to deliver that, sign them off, and forget about this project. But there is where it starts a new phase, the operation, maintenance, and so on, and we cannot forget about that, because all the data will be harvesting during the construction. It will be for nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, what we're doing now with our building registry, because we have everything, all the built environment or the buildings described there, we're trying to get the municipalities to use that data more and more, because we've had an issue that you get the building permit application, they review it, they collect all the data. That's nice. They issue the permit, and that's it. They more or less forget about it, and they think the information is somebody else's information. They're not supposed to deal with it. But actually, the municipalities are responsible. They're the owners of that built environment data, and we needed them to keep it up to date as possible. But in order to keep it up to date, you have to start using that data. So we're really trying to provide more services and more access, easier access for them to get information from the building registry, which is kind of in Europe what they're kind of calling now is the building logbook as a new concept, which is kind of what we've already had for years and years in Estonia, is essentially a building logbook. But we're building services on top of that. For example, like the 3D digital twin, so we can use to visualize it. You can visualize new developments. You have planning, zoning. You have restrictions there, and once you start visualizing it, you immediately see the errors you have in the data, because if there's missing information about a building, it doesn't show up. If the height information is wrong, you immediately see it. It doesn't fit in. And or if the status of the building shows, we use different colors, you see, well, that building should be already commissioned, but it's still shown as being built or being planned. So there's something wrong there as well. And these kind of things help a lot in data management, because ultimately, coming back to what I was saying, is that we need to start using all this built environment data smarter way, so it adds more value to every life cycle step, and really about really getting the municipalities also, and everybody, not just the municipalities, but all the people dealing with the development of the built environment to use as much of this data as possible, so it will kind of live and be up to date as in as much real time as can be.
No, I think I believe you're right. Just only things I believe it as well is that I think this is a little bit. Excuse me, just I'm just 100% Polish, so this is for me. It will be very direct. It's just a normal thing. So I think you're living in the la la lands a little bit, just because I think if it's not automated, all of this information somebody will just not be modified as a little bit, and they will not be modified. If it's not automated, if the building itself will not tell you that I changed the status, I can guarantee you that we will forget about it in the 5 years and we will stop modifying it. So I think my point here in this is just, if we will not find the automatic mechanisms really just to update the plans, to make it sure that it's going, some people will not do it, right? And because of the workload, because of some other stuff, because we were lazy, or etc., or we will forget it, I prefer to pay the fine instead of updating my plans, because I don't see any value on it, blah, 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 all of this kind of thing. So I hear you, but it's just, I don't think so that we're there yet. That's not, it will not happen very, very soon for me.
No, I agree. We're not there yet, but it's nice to live in a la la land, to be honest.
I like it. It's not a problem. I'm happy to be there.
But you're absolutely right. It needs mechanisms, checks and balances in place so that it will actually work. But getting to real time is something that is an ultimate goal, which is really far away. And when you're talking about buildings and sensors and all this IoT stuff, then we're just starting to scratch the surface there. But the more simple stuff, like having the data up to date once you submit once you get a building permit, means that you have an enriched structured data model, a BIM model, that can be then used and compared later on when you've finished construction and you want to get a certificate of approval. You want to commission the building into use. So then we go back and we check the design model. We compare it to the as-built model, make sure it's updated. And then once the building is commissioned, the as-built model is going to live in the building registry as public data. And everybody who wants to use any part of that information from construction, from the handover, we can do that, and we can provide them this data, and they can connect to it through APIs, which is already possible to some extent. We don't have To be honest, we don't yet have the BIM models there, but we are building the system to have them there, and it will take a few years, I'm sure, but ultimately that's the way it's going to be.
Right, no, just hear you. I got disconnected mentally from the moment when you said as-built model, okay? Because usually the as-built model, they are not as-built, but they are just ideally just that that's becoming a little bit tricky, you know. So yeah, okay, no, I understand it, but let's change the gears a little bit. You know, I hear what you were saying in terms of the data and making sure that we need to keep on the open data. One things which really just the last 3 years show us, and this is different things right now in terms of the economic, the politics is showing us as well right now, is what I call it the data dependency. And that's something which is, you know, I'm really happy about the open standards, about everything, but I'm really worried about Europe in the way how we handle the data and how we handle all of the application part. And again, this is not story about the Google, Amazons, and Alibaba and all of these things. And just, I think we're forgetting in Europe that we're supposed to really keep the data itself in the European zones or in the country zones or whatever, company zones, whatever you want to do, because we created so much dependency right now on some of the data that we will not be able to quickly get out, and just in case of somebody decided to cut us off, we will just have no doors anymore left to put to the buildings, because the doors was built in the factory XYZ in the country ABC, which they only keep the BIM models for themselves, and right now no doors for Europe. I'm just trying to go a little bit too much on this, but that's what I just see it.
Well, data dependency is, you know, we live in a global world. In the internet, there are no borders. Obviously, it's a political issue, made more evident within the recent years.
Correct.
And it's a geopolitical question. But again, I think this data dependency, a lot of this stuff is being discussed in the European Commission. They have certain laws, regulations in place to kind of maybe mitigate some of the risks and issues we have there. But right now, I don't see really that big of a problem that we need to deal with on a critical level. What we need to do is really not only think about, of course, we should think about where we're keeping our data, and, you know, the cloud is just somebody else's server, and where is that server is and how they're going to use that data. Of course, that's important. Data security is important, but we should really think about how we manage our structured data and how we get data in the proper way, so we can use it further on. So if what we're talking about is kind of like organized, like chaos, like it's unusable data, it's unstructured, it's in PDFs, etc. So, and if we think about, well, how we going to manage and keep that data, then it's really the wrong question we're asking. We should be asking how we structure our data better and how we make it usable, and then you know, in where we're going to store that. Is it going to be locally? Is it going to be in the cloud? Is it going to be in Europe? Is it going to be with some partner countries? You know, who knows? But really, that's not that big of an issue in my mind.
Okay. No, I think so. There is just one clarification. I think you're right. I'm just saying, if you think about the internet is a global. Data is not a global, right? So data contains the borders, unfortunately. So that's what I see. It's not, for me, it's not about the infrastructure part, when you store it, when you keep it, etc., etc. Is that there is a, what I saw it, and this is because when the pandemic starts, you know, we have some problems with the supply chain, because some of the companies decided not to show anymore where are the parcels, for example, or some of the customers, and which, you know, it was just they turn off the ability to track it, some of the stuff, right? Why? Because that becomes strategic information for some of the people to get the goods shipped across the world, etc., etc. So yes, I hear you when you're saying, you know, internet is just no borders. I really think that the data itself, it's really crucial. And when I try to transpose it into the building information modeling and to the whole modeling of digital twins, etc., I really try. I see this kind of like a risk going forward, that we can just get the some of the big suppliers decided that saying, I will not publish this data anymore. That's mine, and you can just tell me whatever you want to do. I have just 80% of the market share in terms of the glass production, whatever production, ABCD production. And no, that's my data. I will not see my structure in the BIM object, for example, right? You can regulate it, but the answer is no.
Well, I mean, that's how business is often done. I mean, if you have a monopoly, or if you have a 80% share of a market, you can pretty much do what you want. But whether or not that is a sustainable business model is another question.
That's it. That's agree. I agree.
Sooner or later, somebody will challenge that model, and if they are more open and they provide more value, then they will be, I think, successful. And again, that's why I think we really need to promote and use open formats for data, open sources as much as possible, especially in the public sector, because when it comes to private sector, it's up to you guys. If it's private money, you order something, you do it, fine. You have more kind of freedom to choose what you have. But if you're doing it for public money, then you need to be accountable on how you use it and how you also manage the data. So, yeah, I understand what the issue is and where the problem could be, but it's often related. Well, the example was with the supply chain that you mentioned, and I think that's more of a supply chain issue again, not that much of a data issue.
I know. I decide tomorrow that all of my IoT equipment will not transmit the signal, etc. I think we can just get the different example than supply chain, but I still think that we are not talking too seriously about the data in the construction. I think you mentioned it very nicely about the structuring, putting the backbones, and making sure that it's open. I try to see this a little bit further in terms of the security threat really for us, but maybe I'm just getting paranoid right now about it. So that's potentially, it's only me. So sorry for that.
No, I mean, it's a valid point, and it's something we've been discussing a lot, in Estonia as well, and it's been especially a heightened discussion after our neighbor Russia attacking Ukraine, being an aggressor, and that makes a lot of people worried about the data about our infrastructure, about our built environment. But yeah, so it's a very valid question. So you shouldn't be sorry about asking it. It's just
I try just to not to be paranoid about it, because sometimes
Yeah.
I try to get it about it. That's okay. Sorry, Enrique. I think I hijacked a little bit the conversation.
It's
Sorry.
okay. It's okay. I'm just enjoying here, like watching a movie. One question. One question for you, Jaan. Like following the example you guys have done in Estonian government, if putting on the road that you guys can act as a consultant for other governments going to you and say, hey guys, I see it works on your side. What do we need to do? No, the open data formats, of course, and so on. But what do we need to do? What is the to-do list, the 3 main points, the 5 main points to follow your example and make our government work like yours in terms of permits for construction and so
on? Well, again, that is a very good question, Enrique. What to do? Well,
summary your last 5 years work in a few sentences, basically. No?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about how we can copy some of the stuff we've done in Estonia. So we try to make everything scalable. So you can take our solutions and you can scale them up. Companies who've developed them for us, the software developers we're working with, I also encourage them to go and export the stuff that you've done, and that's why we use again international open standards as much as possible. So nothing is Estonian specific. But I think it's really it comes down to first of all having the guts to take the leap and to make the change. And in Estonia, we're lucky enough to have a relatively small country with a small government, and luckily some smart guys in political office as well, who are bold enough to make decisions and make the changes. Because what I see in other countries often happening is, it's not the lack of trying, or it's not the lack of technology, or the companies or the community not being ready, because there's so many advanced companies all over Europe, all over the world, who are doing incredible stuff. But it's really about getting the government to make the decisions, to take the step, to make the first change. And that is something I see, which is maybe a bit unique in Estonia, that having a small government, having all of this digital society, we are more adapted to making changes quicker. And that would be, one of the first things, is to really kind of push for change, and not to. This doesn't mean creating, a huge master plan or something like that. No. What you need to do is you need to just start making changes in an agile manner, small steps, but keep making them, keep moving them. Always have, the long-term goal also somewhere in sight, but not create a plan for managing the whole long-term goal, because that'll never work. And what is working in the software industry is, this waterfall methodology for software development is kind of already age old. Nobody wants to do that. All software development is happening in an agile manner. So you deliver as quickly as possible a working solution, and you build from there. You take feedback from the industry, from your users, from your clients, and you build upon the product. And this kind of agile mentality is not very common in governments, but at least in Estonia, we're trying to implement it. And to some extent, we've been a little bit successful with that, although as the older our government gets, the more difficult it is to make these changes. Because if you think back in the 90s, when we regained our independence from Russia, the occupationists, they moved out, and we got our country back. We had a totally new parliament. We had new guys in political offices who were coming from the industry, who were motivated by change, and who didn't really have a legacy, or they weren't, bred to be career politicians. And these were the guys who made the right changes, and could make the fast changes, and to decide to move to the, let's go with this whole internet thing that's coming around, and we don't need to build government offices everywhere. Let's do it digitally. We can do this. We can do the banking stuff and everything. We can, digital identities for everybody, digital signatures. I would say with the government we have now, it would be much more difficult to do that in the 90s when compared to the government we had then. But if you think about other countries where you've had a stable democratic government for decades and decades, even longer in some cases, in Switzerland, for example, I don't know how many hundreds of years dates the government. There, it takes a lot of effort to make these changes. So I don't know, maybe was that step one or step two.
Have bold, basically, and compromise.
Just get the young people to the government. I think this is the step one.
No, it's good.
Because that's ultimately what it boils down to. Because if you look at what kind of solutions are out there, what can we do to implement and do things, there's plenty to choose from. And in all of our IT industries, there's lots of bright minds who can just tell the word, we'll think up a solution. The technology is there, now with all this machine learning stuff, AI as they like to call it, which is really not AI, but it's kind of getting there. There's a world of possibility with technology, but it's about really making the change and at the government level. Because as you know, the construction industry is so complex, and it has so many different stakeholders, that to have the industry bring about this bigger change is very difficult again. So it's maybe a little bit easier if it's pushed by the public sector, because there are some opportunities there. But then again, to get the public sector to move, that might be a lot more difficult task than to ask the industry itself to kind of push for change in the government. And this is what I see happening in many countries. Is in some cases it's the government. In most cases, it's industry who's really pushing for change, and the government is kind of a blocker, if you will, in many cases, mainly because they don't want to make any real decisions. But in some cases, it's also you see where the government is working. Also, for example, our neighbors in Finland, they just adopted a legislation that says that for every building permit, you have to also submit an IFC model. And this is now in the law. It's going to be enforced either in 2024 or 2025. They keep pushing the date.
That's what I was saying. I think they will push it.
The intention is there.
They adopted the law, and more or less it's going to be like that in Finland very, very soon. So there's good examples, and the more good examples we have, the easier it is for the rest to follow.
So can I just ask you for a favor? If you will be just this, because you have the experience on the small building, on the constructions, etc. If you are just small company, what advice you would like to give it to me? I'm small company, a small construction company. I'm struggling because this is what our clients are doing, right? They just come to us and saying, hey, can you help us to do BIM, because we don't understand it really why, but everybody talks about it. We cannot find any benefits of it, but everybody talks about it, and just we need to put it because the new products are required. What will be your advice to this guy, saying, like, in the three points, saying, okay, let's do this, and this to make sure that you can go forward, because they're struggling, they don't know what really to do, and they're not sure if they want to go for it, in fact.
Again, a very good question, especially for small companies. How do you get on the BIM bandwagon, so to speak? Well, first of all, you have to figure it out by yourself. What is it good for, and where you get the value? That's
very creative. Thank you.
and you shouldn't do it because somebody's just telling you to do it. Of course, that's in many ways the mandates are working in many countries. By the way, we don't have a BIM mandate in Estonia, and we don't plan on having it anytime soon. What we do is we ask public sector clients to put BIM requirements into their contracts, but then we also ask them to really think about what are you going to do with this data, and why are you asking this, and don't ask just because for the sake of asking, or somebody told you to. How are you going to use that in maintenance, etc.? How it's going to help you optimize the design, the construction, and all of that. There's plenty of use cases for BIM, and I would say that's my first advice, is to really figure out if you can get a competitive advantage from that. And if you can figure it out, find people who can help you figure it out. But if you still are not convinced, and this still doesn't work for you, then don't do it. Then keep doing what you're doing if you're making money with it, and be happy, and try to make your clients happy. But in the end, in the long run, you will be left in the dust. So if you're thinking about future, but not everybody's thinking that far ahead, and it's about really making the business work that you have now, and you have bills to pay, etc. And as long as you have clients who are paying and are happy customers, by all means, do it. Why bother? But my first advice is still to try to figure it out, try to understand it, and see where the benefits are for you, because you could be improving your efficiency 20, 30, 50% if you make the proper changes, and if you apply some technology in certain processes. But yeah, that all takes time and resources. Not everybody has time and resources, but in the end, it's maybe just one or two clients say, well, I'm willing to work with you on this. Let's see if we can make something better, and try to find those clients maybe, and propose to them that we could. There's a learning curve, but let's try and figure it out together. And maybe this is a client who's a repeat client who will come to you again and again and really likes the way you're doing this and sees the benefit of what BIM and technology can provide, and they will be coming back and back to you more happier because you're providing a better service in the end. So, but again, I mean, that's up to each individual business owner to figure it out. And if they don't have time, if they don't want to figure it out, if they're making loads of money, loads of cash, they are happy, their customers are happy, then fine, don't do anything. But the time will come when you will probably be starting asking those questions. Why am I not getting the best customers? Why am I losing business? Why is this other company with these young guys who are all about tech and doing all this BIM stuff? Why are they so popular? And nobody wants to do business with me anymore. Then it's maybe a little bit you're late to the game, not too late maybe, but it would be wise to kind of figure out if you could get an advantage or a head start earlier.
Thanks a lot. I think this is great. It's really just coming very well along what we are doing with Enrique. We have some clients who just to come and discuss it, and the answer was just, you don't need it, right? Seriously, just don't even bother, right? That's something which is important for you to do. You're doing well, and I don't think so. We can look at the scalability, etc. If somebody asks, you can ask some modeler to build for this particular project because somebody required. You can just ask the BIM modeler to build a model for you, and it will be one-off, and because he will use it once, and that's it. You don't need to do anything specific anymore, right? So, I think that's right. I think we align with this thoughts, Enrique, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. It's a very valuable. But I like the sentence at the end. You will be left on the dust. It's true that the wheel is moving, and if you are left behind, you will left behind. So you will ask those questions within 10, 20 years. It's a matter of time that the change can happen. Let me ask you something. I got it. It's a question that Peter asked to many of our guests, and it's not about the money. But I got a thought here talking with you about the government. So Peter always asked, like, why this in IT, intercommunication, we have the big companies like Google, Amazon, or Microsoft. Apple or Microsoft. They make a change, or they establish something, and the whole industry just steer the wheel on that direction. They are the leaders on the industry. There's 4 or 5 top companies that really set the path. We don't have that in construction, or at least I'm not known about this, that there is certain industries or people, organizations that can do those biggest changes and everyone can follow. And maybe that's why we're missing this driver on the biggest truck of the change. And now I think, do you think that this role of the Amazon, of Google, and Microsoft in the construction industry for the change to steer the wheel can be the government? Can they be the one to say, guys, this is the direction, we move to this direction?
In all honesty, no, I don't think so. Governments are never going to be as agile, as fast as private companies, and be they how big they are, the companies. I mean, they still have how to phrase it politically correctly. They have a more direct responsibility to their shareholders. With the government, it's like it's everybody. It's the people who are the shareholders who hold the power. But that means it's the responsibility is diluted. People don't feel the responsibility, but as shareholders, they kind of have more. They feel more owners in that part in a company than maybe in a government. So that's why I think on that level, companies will never. The governments will never be kind of the transformers that we see in business side, in private industries, like you said, Apple, Google, Microsoft, all these guys. Question is whether there's going to be a company like that for the construction industry. And again, I don't see it happening because the construction industry is much, much more complex. You might see it happening in certain fields, in certain parts of the industry, but definitely not kind of a whole ecosystem like Apple has built. So you own an Apple computer, you have an Apple Watch, you have an Apple phone, you have all your apps from the App Store. That is, I would say, well, never say never, but I just don't see it happening.
I don't want the same house as you will be living, my dear. No, that's no way.
It's not about the unique product, no? It's about setting the tendency, right? Like making this final push to the industry. This is what I was meaning, like not about making all the things the same in a way, but do we need those kind of leading companies or figures, let's call them figures, in the construction industry to make BIM or digitalization really happen, like for real, and forget about everything, so starting from zero and move forward? Or maybe we don't need it, it's about time, because we are so big that we need to slowly make the change and eventually it will change. But Jesus, it's taking so long.
Yeah, it's yeah. The honest answer is I don't know. I get a gut feeling that it's going to be an incremental change. We're not going to see a big revolution, but in the end, I think it could be coming from a whole different direction. If we're thinking about BIM, if we're thinking about digitalization, this is all just a means to an end. It's a tool. We really need to be thinking about what kind of living environment we want to live in the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And then we have the question of sustainability. We have the question of decarbonization, global warming, all that, and recycling, renovation, which is going to be much more in value than maybe before, because young people, they don't want to live in new houses, they want to live in renovated houses. They like older houses. And whether or not we should be living in individual homes or we should be thinking about communities, how we build our urban environments, all of that is a little bit changing, and our current model of living and our kind of, in the Western world, at least the kind of ideal of, in Estonia as well, everybody thinks, well, I should have my own house with a garden, cars and stuff. This is not really sustainable for everybody on the planet, and where the change might actually come from, that we start to see new solutions developed with the help of technology, with the help of machine learning, with generative design, all of that, we could start seeing these new trends emerge in production of houses as well. And this is a very important aspect, is industrialization of construction as well. I think it's not just about digitization, it has to go hand in hand with the automation of the process itself. So in the future, I think most houses will be built into factories, not on site. They will be assembled, but they will be built, and most of the job will be done in factories, to some extent by machines, by robots, but still to some extent by human hands. But that's where I see, and there's some really cool things happening around timber construction. Estonia is very well known for its timber construction, prefab construction. We built a lot of houses there, shipped to Norway, Sweden, etc. In other parts of Europe, we have a very advanced industry there. Estonia is actually the #1 exporter of timber houses in Europe. And this is by the amount we produce, how much of that we export. So it's not absolute numbers, but in absolute numbers, it's also not bad, but not as much as, of course, Germany. And if you see how timber technology has advanced over the last years, and with the help of actual technology, because you can simulate, you can calculate things that you couldn't do before, and you can assemble them in a way that you couldn't have done before without computer-aided design, without these very complicated geometric models. And I think this might be a much bigger change maker than we're talking about, having BIM and digitization and digital transformation. It's just a tool that we can use to create a whole new living environment in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Very
It's
nice.
just one part of it. One of the...
Enrique, I think we just as the discussion is pretty interesting, and it just was really great thing, but we need to wrap it up, otherwise just we will be cut by YouTube afterwards, so it's not good.
Also, we promised Jaan 60 minutes. We owe him now 45 seconds. We don't want to be in depth with you anymore.
No, I'm happy and honored to be on the BIM Cafe, so it's a real pleasure.
That's really great. We are, and thanks for responding from all of my questions, which sometimes was not really easy to really handle. We still have the open question. I have open question about the data, but we can go back to the completely different topic on this one. So thank you very much for spending the time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and ideas how we can just move forward. Enrique, I think it's your honor to close the discussion today.
Yeah, let me just take this 30 seconds marketing break to remember everyone to subscribe to our YouTube. Go on YouTube, the BIM Cafe, BIM Not to BIM. We're also available on LinkedIn on all the live sessions. And we have new here, subscribe QR code. So hit this QR, show there exactly, and bring you to the channel perfectly. Jaan, thank you so much. If you have something else to add, it's your moment. If not, we invite you for the next interview, because there's so many things. I haven't even put the slides I prepared for this, so you can see how seamless was the conversation.
Thank you, guys. It's been a blast.
Fantastic. Thanks to everyone again. I'll see you in the next interview. Bye.